welcome back to Next Normal, to the final and closing session, which is extremely great in terms of the title and in terms of the lineup. And the title is of this panel, The Doctor Will See You Now, The Rise of Hyper-Personalized Patient Support. Today, we have three great gentlemen, fellows at this panel. First of all, we have David Ferrando Navarra from Ferrer. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you all.
We have Goren from Teva. We just previously had another colleague from Teva, so Teva obviously does the job in the proper way. Hi, Guri. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
And we have Cyril from MSD. Cyril, same question for you. How are you? All fine?
I'm very good. Thanks, Daria.
Great. So let's kick off the discussion. My first question to you, gentlemen, would be, how can pharma design a unique patient experience? Let's call it a patient experience etiquette, which would be the ultimate goal. Let's start with you, David.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would say that a one-size-fits-all approach, I think it will not work because complexity is increasing in pharma markets. From several years until now, I think we can all agree that the way to launch in pharma has changed. We have moved from a product launch, and we are now heading from some years now a customer experience launch. Mm-hmm. So at least I believe that most of us will agree that the importance of customer experience nowadays, and there has been a lot of increased focus on understanding beyond the product. So in many drug markets, having a robust clinical trial with results in safety, efficacy, and superiority is mandatory, but it's no longer sufficient to achieve results and differentiate. And therefore, we have all realized and recognized the importance of launching not only the drug, with all its implications and complexities in all aspects, but also launching an experience that can come through a patient support program. So with this said, it's not about centering a product launch based on meeting medical needs only, but to include from a very start in the global strategy, the design of all related to the experience, such as, for example, disease awareness, patient access, titration of patient satisfaction, monitoring, usage, loyalty. All these need to be tackled and faced from the start and as early as possible, because and not after launch. Although there is no proof that due to this lack, things can underperform, what we do know is that many launches do not perform the peak estimate sales after 5 years of launch. So as a summary, I would say that starting early in clinical development stages, engaging with real cross-functional and multidisciplinary teams, that this includes also R&D teams from the beginning, and also organizing the company around these functions that are based on what customers want. At our company at Ferrer, we are committed, of course, of bringing transformative solutions to patients, but we are also committed to understand and address healthcare providers and patient needs throughout all the journey, starting from the beginning.
Thanks a lot, David, especially with underlying loyalty, because we don't hear that word very often in the industry, which I would say is the outcome of experience in some way, right? Uri, let's move to you, and with a very simple.
So I would say that we should start with patients. I mean, we talk a lot about patient experience, but we don't talk enough to patients. We don't include them in the process enough. So it's not just a multifunctional element in terms of company functions, but also actually hearing what the patient has. What is the experience that they have? What are their needs? Where do they think we can fit in? Because we usually talk about patient support programs from a very selfish point of view of increasing adherence and loyalty. And that's fine. I think that's important because we do know the ancient word of drugs don't work in those who don't take them is true to anything. But if we all think about it that way, we come up with the same a bit cookie cutter solutions of training, of apps to remind and stuff like that. and that doesn't work anymore, it's very hard to retain and to basically recruit patients. So I think we need to restart. First of all, I agree completely. It needs to be very early in the development phase, where we think about packaging, when we think about mode of administration, when we think about how we will structure the elements. And it's not just the patient, it would be also their carers, the physician around, the nurse, depending on the drug and how it's taken. All of those experiences need to be checked with the people. And I think clinical trials is a golden moment to garner not just the efficacy and the outcomes that matter for registration, but also to understand what was the experience, what went well, what didn't go well, and fix it and make an impact on that. So when you launch your PSP, it's much more directed to the needs of the patient and gives answers to real problems and not to our problems, but to the patient's problems. And the HCP, and it's kind of a circle. If you answer the needs of patients, you also help the HCPs, you also help the pharmacists. You need to look at all those customer journeys and do it collaboratively with your customers, be it patients at this point.
So ultimately, we can connect all those three mentioned customer journeys, which would.
Yeah, I think we all know that when we look at patient centricity, it's basically also looking at physician centricity in terms of the experience, in terms of reducing burnout, in terms of a lot of things.
Yeah. Exactly. Fully agree with it. Cyril.
Yeah, I think it's great. So fully agree with what David and Yuri have been saying, right? And what's clear when I was listening to what you were saying is that patient experience in pharma comes in many guises, right? It's clinical trials, it's patient support programs, advocacy programs. There's many things we can do with our patients. And the reality is that digital technologies have enabled patients to take a much more prominent role, right, in all of this, in particular when researching treatment options. And actually, if you look at some research like done by agencies, right, the issue we have that patients do not rate the interactions they have with us very highly. It's pretty low, actually, right? So we need to rethink how we do that, how we best deliver our interactions with patients and informations and services. So now, aside from that perspective at MSD, when we speak to patients, we get pretty clear guidance on how we can improve the experience. The first one is what you were saying, Yuri. It's start from the patient, right? Treat them as individuals, right? Not Mr. Patient. They're all individuals with their specific situation, and we take that into account. What also tell us that they want trustworthy, accurate, up-to-date information. That's what they want overall, and they want it to be easily accessible, which is why websites work pretty well. Right? I'm getting very tactical now, but the way to deliver this websites is a very good way to do it. Just to bring an example, what we also found is that the information they want is not just about disease or treatments. There's many other areas where we can support them. For instance, a couple of years ago in France, we launched an oncology patient website called moncancer.com, which you can all visit. What we found in terms of what the patients are interested in, it's really services. They want help finding patient associations. They want help to hear stories from other patients. They want also guidance on how to pay for the treatment. All sorts of also how to manage a family in this situation. So all sorts of life topics that are way broader than in treatment information. So, but what it also means for us, which I think is great, is that it gives us so many opportunities, so many needs we can address, and really provide a great experience.
Thanks a lot, Cyril. Let's move to the next question, which is there anything what Omnichannel in those 24 months can teach us and what we can implement into patient support and experience? Let's start with you, Uri.
I think Omnichannel is basically saying customer centricity in another way. It's basically not choosing the channels, but again, looking at what the patient needs and wants and make it available in whatever channel that he thinks is the best for them. Okay, so sometimes we have programs that are based on nurse support, But we forget that some don't want that and just want the information accessible to download and work on their own. Or the other way. So we usually do it by how much we are willing to invest because of what is the drug and what is the element. So for me, omnichannel is basically removing the technology to be transparent and looking at the needs and making it available in those channels on certain levels of service that aligns across it. So it's like key to giving a good customer experience. It's not a choice anymore in some ways, although we don't bank on it, I think, enough still in pharma. So for me, it's like, it's a building block.
Thanks a lot. Cyril?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of this. What I would add is because patients are getting increasingly involved in health decisions, right? So it's all about omnichannel marketing. It's also the marketing being big, meaning the customer centricity. We have to play a key role. I was actually investigating this a little bit, and I got two facts which I think are quite interesting. Is about 70% of patients think that decisions made about their treatment should be a collaborative effort between them and doctors. That's one. And the other one, what patients expect from companies now, from ourselves, pharma companies, that we do not only provide products, but we also help them manage their health, like their overall wellness goals, right? So we become like wellness partners. So it's a big ask, right? It's a huge ask. But at the same time, it does create, I think, opportunities for us to provide services, digital drug solutions, or patient support programs, education programs, which is great because, again, we can go way beyond what we'd be typically doing. And if I look at some of the rules, I think are right for those patient support programs, and what basically Omnichannel teaches us, quite in line with what Yuri was saying, is first make them very easy to access. Now, if you want patients to accept them, make them super easy to access. Make them very easy to onboard as well, right? Once they are on your website or wherever they are. Personalize, because again, patients are diverse groups of individuals. It's not such as a patient, like they're all different. Very important to find the right voice, right? The voice in vaccines, the voice in oncology is not the same. It's not the same type of issues. It's also about going beyond a single drug or disease, right? Because patients will have comorbidities. So when they want information, they also want the holistic, they want to hear about everything, not just that specific drug that you're trying to sell. And that is, of course, a regulatory aspects. You need to be clear on when a PSP is a PSP and when it becomes a medical device, right? So we need to be very careful with those things.
Certainly. Thank you, Cyril. David?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that we have learned a lot. And I would say there's still a lot to learn from omni-channel in the last few years, also before, but also the pandemic has clearly accelerated. And I have to be I agree totally with my colleagues on the simplicity, on the unique experience on there, the patient unique. But I want to share two big learnings above this that I totally agree, which is the first one is that content is king. I mean, we speak a lot about channels, infrastructures, but the content is what drives really the channel. So the channel is the media where a message is traveling, and the message is the content, right? And making it simple, accessible, and unique, that's key. So no matter what the distance, what is the channel or channels we are using, as long as we have relevant content and it's easy to access, our customers, whoever patients, HCPs, will be there and will be attracted to consume it. And the second is about people and capabilities. So change and transformation, but we are subject to a constant change, comes through people. They are the engine for doing that. So people need to be, so we can have great discussions on technicalities and having great algorithms that can help us a lot. But if people don't have upskilling, don't have capabilities, we are not going anywhere, right? So yeah, content, tagging the content, orchestrating the content, using it, reverting all the insights into our strategy, and then having people really embracing that and taking all the advantage and moving them together with all this orchestration is the key and what we should learn and translate still learn more and transfer also to any patient support programs.
Thank you, David. Final question would be then how actually to establish a trustful, personalized engagement chain from this HCP to patient level to combine the multiple journeys like we previously stated. And let's start with you, Cyril. I see you are laughing, which means it seems you are having the answer.
Well, no, because I was going to say, I wish I had the answer. I wish. It's a great question, right? So I would say this, right? In pharma, which is unlike in many other industries, we do not own, the company don't own the full patient experience from end to end. That makes it super different. So, because often when we talk to other industries and we see what they do, the thing is they can control end to end, we can't. So that's one of the specificities. But that doesn't mean we should. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, because I had some background noise. So, but that doesn't really mean we need to forego patient experience. Absolutely not. On the contrary. So from my perspective, if you want to establish this personalized patient support, there's a few key areas on which we need to focus. And the first one is we need to up our game in patient experience design. I think overall across my colleagues from other companies, we've all been doing customer experience design more on the HCP side and so on. So bringing those approaches to the patient side. I think we've been doing less work, at least from my perspective, on this. All I'm saying is it's about creating this sort of patient interaction as part of a patient journey, right? Like clinical trials, like patient programs. And in that, you take into account the role of the HCP. Because the good thing is when we start from the patient, you've got the holistic view. So that's one. Then, of course, you need to build the right digital technologies, website, I mentioned them earlier, apps, social media, pretty good channels or technologies for patients. What's specific about patients in a compliant way is you can really generate data through digital health technologies. So that's good, very useful. And of course, you need to measure the patient experience, understand how the patients interact with the information we provide, but also analyze how that translates into perception change or attitude change or behavior change, right? So that would be my 4 key areas to focus on to build this personalized engagement.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, this is a nice question because my first thinking about this question is always the same, right? So every time we get the teams to think out of the box and define strategy for better engagement between HCPs, patients, and support programs, I get to the same conclusion, and is that the best way to get near the patient is to be the nearest to the HCPs, right? So hard to move into patients in any manner if we do not have a trustful and close relations to HCPs. And this may sound very obvious, but when we force teams to think about patients, there is a risk of them getting disconnected from HCPs. So we have to be very, very consistent with that. Of course, PCPs have great opportunities to be embraced and improve efficiencies, for example, in safety data collection. But we first must make sure we have a trustful interaction with HCPs. And also because, as we said before, this implies more teams. So more teams actively designing, it's more complexity. So making sure we help to build the trust of the HCP to the patient is the best way to start this journey. For example, focusing on building the knowledge of a subject matter, like continuous disease state education, and also knowledge of the patients, creating business models of care where there is an active collaboration between HCP and patients. This is the advice of the support this trusted relation between HCP and patients, and that will take us the best way to the patient.
Thanks a lot, David. And Uri?
I would like to touch on one thing, is being enablers. So I think we need to be enablers. We are not going to be part of that discussion actively, but once we understand the keys to that discussion, we need to be better enablers. Have tools, content, services easily accessible for both sides in order to enable that better discussion. It needs the trust of the HCP to use our tools, and I fully agree on that. They won't use tools that they don't trust the people behind them, and also for patients. But being enablers of those discussions and understanding where we can bring those elements is a key for us to be successful in that. If in terms of that discussion, the second thing is to overlay the two journeys and find where pain points are conjoined and understood, and then trying to find ways to better solve those points that are overlapping. Because sometimes the key is basically making it easier to prescribe, right? If the doctor has to go through 7 hoops to prescribe the medication, it's going to be hard to get prescriptions, and it's going to be hard to get a good experience because he gets through 7 hoops. He gets to that point, he's already tired and annoyed by the process. So there, we should also look to higher ups to look at collaborations with the providers, with the payers, depending on how your system is built, right? Better access. And that's what I would say is enablers. And then it gets to the point of the PSP program itself, once you onboard on it, and then seeing how you close the loops without making the doctor work for you in that, because they won't. Building all kinds of complicated elements that they need to go in order to use. It's nice, but it won't work. They have their own screens. You need to make yourself available and understood by that point. So again, going back to the initial point of being good enablers of those processes and trying to close gaps where we can influence them.
So to sum it up and to simplify it, ask patients, right? This is maybe the crucial thing. It was actually very funny that in one session we had a observation that there is no right answer, right? But maybe we can paraphrase this and say there is a right answer for the right person in the right moment in the right channel, right? Which is literally this. So
I would say there is a right question. The answer varies, but you need to ask the right questions.
Exactly. Fully agree. Gentlemen, it was really a great conversation. We will publish this conversation on our official YouTube channel as well. Take very good care and have a nice rest of the day, and look to the next discussion.
Thanks, Dario.
Thank you, Dario, for having us.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.